I'm getting good at that. That's all I want to say. Welcome to Echo Chamber's session in between sessions. Tonight we're going to talk about our encounter with a Minotaur. I think that's pretty much what we just need to label it: our encounter with the Minotaur, or as Eric called it, which he's not here at this time, the hunter becomes the hunted. That's the episode name. I like that quite a bit. You know what? We have a special guest, and I wouldn't want to take any thunder. So, Evan, let's start off with you. You had a question? Go for it.
Um, as you hear my captives in the background in a cage, I'm just kidding, everyone. I have two children that are just running around and causing chaos. My question, so we, so one of our party members, our wonderful bard, decided to wander off by himself to find certain things after Amrook had strategically captured the Minotaur. How did Amrook feel when we had to split the party to find Warwick? I'm gonna mute myself now while you answer.
It's a good question. So I tried to think about this as Reed was coming up because I feel like the spiteful side probably would have just let Reed kill it. At the same time, though, I was thinking, well, we need information from it. He doesn't know that I have it because I did take off backwards in the direction that the flame was leading. Um, so I don't think he really had a feeling. I think he was hurting a little bit, and he was just like, "All right, guys, you go do your thing. I'm gonna sit here." So it was kind of just gonna catch my breath. I don't know. I think at the same time, other party members could have had certain feelings as well. So I'd like to hear from everybody at that point. Like I thought it was Carl thought it was super comical that he was off doing what God knows what because our characters didn't know. So what does Siddle think the whole time?
Uh, I was, because in character we don't really know that we're out of initiative, and so there was a little bit of panic of, oh dear God, he's gonna take another fucking gem from the face of another statue, and we're all gonna be fucked. Like that man can't be trusted, kind of thing.
Yeah. So who's taking first watch on Warwick?
Yeah, pretty much. He's gonna be a leash toddler.
I will admit there was part of Amrook and Carl when he put the first gem in his pocket, and I'm like, that motherfucker right in front of us. There was a feeling there, and then he disappears right after. So I'll agree with that side of the story. And obviously that's Warwick. So I mean, Keegan's just playing it how he thinks. How did Griswold feel about it? Since you asked the question.
So Griswold was like, so Griswold was super. Griswold was frustrated but panicked a little bit because Griswold's tried to be a little bit more strategic. Tried to at least, not saying it's worked so super well, but he was like, "Oh my gosh, this first time I get to speak to a Minotaur and probably no one else can." So Griswold's like, "All right, got a little bit of a boner. That was cool." And then he's like, "Oh
Was that was
shit."
that Evan that got the boner or Griswold? I'm confused.
A little bit of both. Not gonna lie. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Griswold's moment. And then we're like, oh crap, where's Warwick? I actually Griswold didn't go to Warwick is stealing something. He went to the first Minotaur attack and said that guy swung and hit Griswold for 23 points of damage. And he gets two attacks, if he hits Warwick with that and hits both attacks, Warwick's unconscious.
So we're talking the first Minotaur or first Minotaur
Well,
skeleton?
well, maybe it was the first. Oh, it was the skeleton. I think it was that hit me with.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
making
that
sure
the first.
because
Yeah.
if we're talking, I wasn't sure if we're talking Griswold thought there might be another Minotaur or what.
Oh
So
no. I went back to the first skeleton and thought that guy smacked me pretty hard. If he goes up against a minotaur skeleton or even a minotaur something along those lines, Warwick's dead. Like he's a goner. So Griswold panicked and was like,
At the
oh shit.
at the same time,
So
isn't there part of you and Griswold that's like, you make your own decisions. If you decide to go off because everybody else was actually, fighting for the cause, I don't know.
I no Griswold didn't. No one's made him angry. Like right now, he's tried to protect more than anything. So it was more of a like it was a dad mode. Like, all right, let's as Rusty's put it, we need to put a leash on this child. Like, so he panicked and like, oh God, my child's about to die. Something's wrong. Let's wrangle in the kittens from the shiny objects here and see what happens. So, yeah, yeah, that's why Griswold rushed over. He was more so thinking that, yep, someone's gonna die, and that's gonna suck.
Yeah, okay. I get that side. At the same time, I think if Ryan were here, I don't want to speak for him, but I think if Ryan were here, he would explain, that Reed believes that it's you make your own decisions. Like you're either with us or against us, and apparently you're not with us if you're off doing something else.
For sure, for sure. And I think Reed said something. I think he reads. I don't know if it was Ryan or his character that said something along those lines before some of the party members like walked off to go find Warwick. I think he did say, "Well, he's not here. Oh well, let him do what he wants to do." And yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. I think Ryan would, both Ryan and Reed would say something like that.
And I think that I kind of maybe would have sided with Reed a little bit on that one too, had it not been, hey, we are in a very hostile environment and we don't need someone drawing extra undue attention to us or unneeded attention to us.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to speak for Adrin, but you could see the panic. The panic was setting in, so I think he was more uh, paternal as Griswold was. So I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting dynamic to see. Very comical from my standpoint, and just interesting to see the reactions of each individual member. So, great question, Evan. Thanks for bringing it up. We also got to witness some DM inspiration, pried out of the DM by Evan, but nonetheless. And I think one of those was used, wasn't it? Didn't Warwick get to use one?
I can't
I
remember
don't
if he
remember,
did
did
or
he?
not.
I know Amruk didn't. He was
No, he
going
did.
to on the
He did.
final. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
Warwick
he
did.
did too. Yeah, that's what I thought. So how did you guys like that twist? Had the additional? I feel like it's going to help in certain situations. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I feel DM inspiration's meant to do. It's meant to allow you to help enable the story with the DM, and that kind of boost. Do you guys, Rusty? Do you feel like it's going to make a difference in gameplay?
Yeah, I think just adding that extra little insurance policy kind of makes me feel a little better, even if it's just one person per session, essentially. But
Go ahead, Evan. You were going to say something. What did you
You're not
think?
allowed. No, I agree. I like the little insurance policy, but I also like that it's kind of a way to, in my mind, it was a way to keep you in check a little bit. So I will tell you, um, Gabriel did reach down and give Griswold inspiration for not beating the hell out of Reed for trying to trip him for no reason. Because Griswold restrained himself and was like, "All right, just let it go." But it in my mind, you get these are small rewards for you to stay on track with like the morals and aspirations of your character to a degree. Now it's not a huge reward, but I think inspiration can turn the tides. And you roll a nat one against a heavy character, and you change it to actually hitting instead of you know that one where some bad things can happen. I think it could change the tide of a game, even something small. So I think it's actually really awesome.
I think
I'm
it
I'm
could
pretty
go
pumped about
even
that.
further, and I'm gonna take it there and say, what if it were a death saving throw, and you just nat one, and then you remember you have DM inspiration.
yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
that's kind of where I think of it as an insurance policy.
Well,
Right,
is he
right.
going to tell us though if we nat one though with that new homebrew rule that we don't know?
I don't know at this point.
But you're right though. Like that would be really interesting if he did end up telling. Like if he didn't tell us, yeah, it would be it'd be interesting. But nonetheless, I definitely think it could be a game changer. I'm actually pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that was my next question. How do you guys feel about that? Because we talked about it a little bit previously. I personally love the idea to create that suspense and sense of urgency, but we didn't get to hear from you, Evan. What do you? How did you feel about it? Because the look on your face was like, what, huh?
I'm gonna sum it up pretty quick. My butthole cringed a little, puckered like a lot. I'm like, oh, like I get the urgency, but knowing knowing that someone nat 20 and it's cool. Well, I guess they would come back for one HP per our rules, but not knowing if they nat one and you now have one round to potentially get to them or you have to adjust. That's some interesting gameplay. Like who's going to be risky and who's not going to be risky if someone goes unconscious, and that is a critical thing. It's I think it adds so much excitement to the gameplay and intensity, but my butthole puckered a lot.
So I think back to two separate fights, but I'll just talk about one. The fight in which Warwick actually did go down against the Wolves and the Giant, and you passed him up. Was it the Wolves and the Giant, or was it the? I think it was either Wolves and Giant or the Onis. I'm not sure. You passed him up, and then Eric wasn't there, so Garrett not casting as a bonus action healing word as well, that would have been pretty crazy to like pretty suspenseful in that moment. So yeah, I think it will negate some of that meta because I feel like you knowing Evan, Eric knowing that they're oh okay they saved twice I can let them go, um, and you not knowing is a big difference.
Yeah, completely agree on that one. Completely agree. It intensifies the situation, and
For
I
sure.
think I wonder how Adrian's gonna adapt since he was the original healer. Like, is he gonna like? I know he's gone monk now for more upfront oomph. I wonder if that's gonna change his gameplay a little bit to where he has like I know he's kept some more back end healing spells, but I wonder if he's like if that's gonna change his gameplay a little bit because I know it is Griswold. Like knowing this and having to adapt with Griswold, like I've already thought about how I might need to adapt with some of the things that I can do now and later on with some of my spell selection. So it's really interesting whether I went offense or strict or added in some utility. So it's awesome. I love it.
Doesn't have to be just a spell though. It could be a healing potion or you know what I mean. So there are
Oh,
other
sure,
ways. We
sure,
could definitely go purchase a bunch
sure.
of healing potions, make sure everybody has one, and that's another way to combat it. Just saying. Something we didn't get to talk about last time that I wanted to talk about, it was about the previous session, was actually that chill touch on the shadow, the undead spirit. So what happened was that the chill touch didn't do the damage because it was necrotic, but the effect of the spell actually happened and gave that shadow disadvantage on the attack, right? And I thought that was like almost a layer that you don't think about because you're like, oh, it didn't hit because it's necrotic crap, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to point that out that that's kind of a cool thing, and there are some different um, monsters and different things that we face that the damage will matter there or the type of damage will matter, right? And like if we look at death giants, if you do necrotic damage to them you're actually healing them and stuff like that. I don't know, do you guys have any like cool ideas, cool monsters, or any thoughts about that series of events with the necrotic damage?
So that's actually something I think about a ton. You and I were discussing this before we hopped on. Basically, hey, I've done over 1,000 points of fire damage alone, and I am fairly fire heavy, which is exactly why I took that, meta
Meta magic.
magic feat was because that's something I think about a lot is what elemental type, whatever. And, I don't know if this just stems from I played a shitload of Pokemon when I was a kid, and like, let's face it, like this week because there was a new remake that came out last week. But that's another story.
That's why you took tomorrow off. Let's be honest, that's what you're gonna do all day.
Oh yeah, man, playing a little bit of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Oh yeah. um, but yeah, I definitely think a ton about damage types and just kind of try and think, okay, obviously if I cast Fireball on a fire elemental, at worst it's gonna do half damage, or at best it's gonna do half damage. At worst it's gonna heal the fucking thing. So always try to remain sort of cognizant of that.
Quar- Quarter damage.
Yeah,
I guess not at best, right? But yeah, somewhere in the middle would be quarter damage. If it fails, it's not healed, but it's fire resistant, quarter damage type deal.
I wasn't even thinking about failed saves. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, yeah.
Griswold hasn't ran across that too much because he not a lot of things are resistant to radiant damage, but
Well,
I ever since I've been starting to watch some other YouTube videos, um, sorcerers and wizards and stuff, it has got me thinking about that kind of spell resistance and what our utility is, and I actually was reading up on the meta magic, and I'm like that was pretty powerful for Siddle to take because now he can adapt and do some heavy damage to, if we go up against like a red dragon or something. So I was actually pretty excited about that. Hasn't been as much of uh, a crutch for me yet, but once we start running up against stuff that can, that's resistant to like piercing damage and stuff, I know I'm going to be super irritated. So that'll always be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess for Griswold on the flip side, we haven't run into undead that take additional damage, and throughout the course of this labyrinth, you've gotten to do additional damage, and so that's probably pretty awesome for Griswold to get to do that.
I have been waiting to go up against undead, and I was telling Garrett this. Griswold's uncomfortable in the labyrinth. Not uncomfortable, but he's of the holy order-ish. Even though a vengeance paladin, he's still in the light, I guess. And in this place of undead and evil, it's kind of like, yeah, we need to kill everything in here. We just need to get rid of all this crap. So he's actually a little bit more vengeful, I think, right now than anything. And Evan, personally, I just want to crit so I can double stack Divine Smite and like Searing Smite, so then I can do because I was adding all this up, the radiant damage, all the radiant damage plus my melee damage. If I were to crit, would be pretty awesome. So just a personal one of mine. I just want to do that, but also I could see Griswold being a little bit more vengeful in certain things since he's around undead. He's kind of like a kid in a candy store. Like, yeah, I'm gonna pop some things with some more damage. It'll be fun.
So, question
Rolling
about
the
that:
cleanup crew.
do you have to crit to cast your smites?
No, I don't have to crit. It's just if so Griswold doesn't do a ton of damage up front. I'd rather a lot of my how Griswold has done this is he uses it for mobility like Misty Step, something like that, or command. It's more utility. But if I crit, then I can actually double stack. I can do Divine Smite, and I can also do another kind of smite. So I could do Searing Smite at second level, and I could do Divine Smite at second level, which gives Griswold um, 1d8 for my mace, another d8 for the plain radiant damage that the mace does, and then it's 5d6 between Divine Smite and the Searing Smite on top of that. So imagine adding all that up and then doubling it for the crit. That would be a pretty juicy punch.
Yeah,
It would be
so
pretty awesome.
for sure with a crit, but I'm trying to think of like a battle against an undead like Nasana, like you don't have to wait to a crit, right? Because when
No,
when when you think about it in that fight, You're not saving
Mhm.
for anything else. So I guess that's where my question comes from of do you
Oh,
have to crit? So the
no,
answer is
no.
no, and you've just been strategic about saving those slots
It,
for other things.
exactly.
So I got you.
Exactly. But I think is since Griswold is, around the undead, I think he's going to be more so trying to say, hey, we need to get rid of this now, more quickly than anything.
Yeah. No, I get that. So cool stuff. Next on the agenda was Bane was cast for the first time in this in the entirety of the campaign. Bane is my second favorite support spell. I love it. I personally thought it was you could cast it on one creature. Now that I know you can cast it on three creatures, that's pretty freaking awesome. So if we do get into a situation where we're getting a little crowded, that is a great one to pull out. And in combination, that one and then bless on top of it,
All right.
that's great wombo.
All right. I got a question for you because Griswold can cast both. There are a lot of things fighting for his concentration because Bane's a concentration spell, and casting Divine Smite takes concentration just to smack someone real quick, so that breaks it. So I think out of all the spells Griswold has, I think there's like two things that doesn't require concentration. Which one would Amro cast? Or which one does Carl and Siddle personally like? The D minus D4 to an enemy, or the plus D4 to the party?
You know what, Siddle, I'll let you go first, and then I'll give my opinion because I've had this conversation with Eric, so I know exactly what I'm gonna say.
So, um, my personal preference, and it's because uh, this definitely benefits the way that my magic and stuff works. Is I prefer Bane because if I can have them, have to roll a D4 to subtract from their saving throw against a fireball or something, with the DC 14, that makes it a really tough. That could potentially make it a really tough save for them, doing full damage instead of half. So my personal preference is Bane, but um, I think that Bane versus Bless kind of depends on the style of play that you involve yourself in.
Valid point, but so for me, I actually go the opposite way. So I said Bane is my second favorite support spell because Bless is my first, and here's my reasoning. It's all about attack economy, right? If Amrook, Griswold, and let's say Siddle in this case, we're all cast Bless on, we get a D4 on each of our attacks, right? If we're only facing one creature, so here's where it does become a little situational. If we're only facing one creature and Bane is cast on that creature, he fails his save on your one attack instead of getting hit by five attacks. I think
That's a
if you
good point.
calculate the damage, Bless actually does more damage. Now, if we had more wizards, if we had more things that were because Emmerich has none, Griswold has one or two, Warwick has a couple, Reed doesn't, Althea doesn't, Adrin he has one or two, but ultimately I think when you look at the party, you're going to have more chances with Bless to have a more of an impact. So that's why Bless is number one for me. Bane is number two. Really like it. Now, you could flip it if we were facing three creatures. Maybe. But again, you come back to attack economy. How many of our attacks will make them save as opposed to how many of our attacks will actually hit because of. You know what I mean? And then another one, my third favorite, and I'm gonna throw it out there, is actually haste. Haste cast on Grizz, haste cast on Amrook, haste cast on Reed. I mean, Reed, if we go to his damage, I was looking at his damage per hit is off the charts. Like he just hit 1,000 damage as well. His damage and he doesn't hit very often. And that's the crazy thing, is he does not hit very often, and he has 1,000 damage. It's crazy, sneak attack and stuff like that. So if you could give him double hits, I mean, That's why that one's my third. But what does Griswold think? Chime in there.
I think it's situational. I'm more on your side, Carl, because I think we're a little bit more melee heavy with that. But I do think it's strategic. I think how we play Bless is going to be a little bit better. But if we were in a situation where we were all back and no chances of getting to Citadel, or it was more of our spellcasters, for from afar, Bane's probably going to be pretty baller for that. So I think I'm more along the lines of Bless, but Bane's pretty awesome. And I do have a surprise for you, Carl. There's a pretty awesome spell that I can cast at level 9 that I think you're gonna love, and it's your third favorite.
Nice, but then again, you're fighting for your concentration. So I guess the ultimate
I know.
discussion there is, go ahead.
No. Yeah, you're right. It's concentration and it's strategic. If we're up against a group of giants, I'm casting haste on you all day because that just makes the most sense. But if it's you know all depends on. I think haste for me because there's other utility spells that I can use that would better suit the party. I think because there's a couple of other third level spells that I get that do damage for the whole party, which I think would be pretty cool. Um, but it'd be situational for me. But I think again, a group of giants casting haste on you just increases our chances significantly because of the giant slayer. So, but when I was going back through and I'm like, oh shit, I totally forgot I can cast haste at level 9. That also cued my question with Garrett. I'm like, so how long does it take to get for us to level? Because I'm
About two
like,
more
that would be
months.
badass. Yeah, because yeah, some of the other stuff I can do is pretty cool. So I was pretty pumped about that one.
Yeah, and we've talked about that situation before, so I'm gonna throw it out there. You said bless versus haste is situational, and I said that as well. But when I start to think about it, chances are, if you don't have those melee in your face people, the backline is gonna die. You know what I mean? So I feel like no matter the party composition, you're always gonna have that need for bless, and I think that need for bless is gonna be stronger than the need for bane.
Um, I have one question that plays into that, and then I got to run and put the kids to bed. My one question is somewhat loaded. I agree. If we need the melee people in place, but one thing that we haven't done a lot of, because I don't know if we've had a lot of chances, is use our environment to our advantage. So I'm going to give a super basic example, but imagine if we were in some cavern or something, um, and there was actually it goes back to one of the our first 6 months of playing. We were in a cavern. We went up against a bunch of goblins. There was a bridge over a stream, and imagine if we were able to manipulate the water flow to where no one could cross, or we shot down the bridge and basically used our environment to create an obstacle course in between us and the enemies. That would be interesting because now our spellcasters kind of have the ball on taking people down before they can find a way to get to us. So, what would you think about that? And then also in turn, do you think we will start to see our environment more come into play when we're getting into these battles as we're reaching higher levels? So probably a two two slot question there, but I'm just thinking about it. Siddle and Amruff, what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Siddle.
Yeah, I think that we definitely need to put more strategy into it as things ramp up, things get tougher, etc., etc. Where that's something that it's I think in the beginning of the game it was like, oh, is that really worth a spell slot? Um, but now definitely is. So yeah, I think that for instances like that, we need to be choosy and definitely utilize those kinds of things. I've got haste, I've never actually used it, so
Yeah, the environment question is tough because then you're gonna decide, do I use a spell slot to create the environment in which I can take shelter behind? I mean, I think over the past, 3 months, we have seen the environments change quite a lot with 3 tiers coming out of the dragon's lair. With when we fought the wolves and the frost giants, we had the ruins as well as the bushes and stuff like that. That we could Reed use for cover, Amrook used for cover, and took the dodge action. So I think that those things are already in play, and it's just about everybody finding their way of using the environment will change. As far as that backline utilizing the environment and not having to worry, I think that's not going to change. The melee need to be in there so that the attacking have to fight us from front to back. Otherwise, they're going to dive the back line and kill them, and then, the front line's going to be like, crap, we don't have a healer, we don't have this damage, you know what I mean? And so I think they depend on each other, but that front line has to be positioned. Good stuff, though, Ab. Thanks for
No, yeah,
chiming in. Thanks for good
yeah.
stuff. Sorry you have to leave early. If you get a chance, come back for Stats Chat or Magic Item of the Week. We're going to do Magic Item of the Week here in just a second. Um,
All right, peace, people.
all right,
Thanks.
catch you
Appreciate
later.
it.
All right. So I think with that, Rusty, I'm going to adjust my camera, but I'm first going to go ahead and put on Magic Item of the Week if you're ready, or as we like to call it, Siddle's Compendium of Magical Artifacts.
I am ready to rock and roll in my best radio voice,
All right.
which isn't very good.
Go
Got a
for
better face for radio.
it. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Awesome. So, got a couple of neat ones. One of them actually sort of played off of something we discussed during our session. First one up is cast off armor. So, cast off armor is armor that was magically enchanted to become exceedingly quick for its wearer to doff. So, um, make it fast to take off. We sort of talked about, okay, to do a proper long rest, you have to take armor off. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to put back on, etc., etc. This is kind of the opposite direction, but still a kind of neat thing. I'm honestly struggling a little bit to find a great use for something that's really easy and fast to take off rather than on.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some racial traits or something where, okay, you have better AC against certain types of attacks or something, but there's nothing super specific that I'm aware of. So,
The only thing I can think of is like a barbarian gets bonus when not wearing armor, so he could wear armor to a point, and then when he's ready to rage, rip it off type deal.
okay, yeah, that's a fair point. This does require it's a one action thing to take it off. So,
Yeah, I think it's a bonus
preparation
action
for
to
a raid.
rage, so it would set you up.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Um, Next one up is the Feather of Trima summoning, which a Trima is essentially an Underdark ostrich.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, if you use the action to speak the command word and throw the feather into a large unoccupied space on the ground within 5 feet of you, the feather becomes a living Diatrima. Jesus, I'm looking at the phonetic spelling and I'm still screwing it up. For up to 6 hours, after which it reverts to its feather form. It reverts to feather form early if it drops to 0 hit points, or if you use an action to speak the command word again while touching the bird. When she reverts to her feather form, the magic of the feather can't be used again until 7 days have passed. So it uses the stat block of an axe beak, except the beak deals piercing damage instead of slashing damage. Creature is friendly to you and your companions, and it can be used as a mount. It understands your languages and obeys your spoken commands. If you issue no commands, it defends itself but takes no other actions. So, could be a kind of neat, instant companion. The only issue is hey, you can only use this once a week.
So, if the creature does the creature cease to exist if it takes no damage, or how does that work?
So if it takes no damage, it only lasts for 6 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not like Frank that just sort of sticks around until he gets killed.
Right, right. Huh, okay. Well, I mean, it's still kind of a cool thing. I mean, we have the bag of tricks. We have some other things similar, but that would be cool for, somebody to pull out of a hat. Is it something you have to attune to, or?
Yes, it is. So that kind of wrecks it for me. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I was
You,
thinking if we can just carry it around, only use it when we need to, that would be nice. But if you have to attune to it, that does kind of hurt overall.
yeah, and then only lasting for 6 hours doesn't do a whole hell of a lot as far as being a mount either. So
Yeah. Hmm.
could be cool, but I think maybe underpowered, which is not an often thing you hear in game items. But
Yeah. True.
all right, and then last one up is a lock of trickery. So this lock appears to be an ordinary padlock of the type described in chapters 5 of the player's handbook, and it comes with a single key. The tumblers in this lock magically adjust to thwart burglars. Um, Dexterity checks made to pick the lock have disadvantage. So basically, uh, only that key works. Works every time. Even duplicate keys, you have to make a dex check at disadvantage to, try it out. Whatever. So, if we had something we were trying to keep locked up and keep away from, a thieves guild or something like that, could be a great little toy for something like that.
All right. So you say it's disadvantage. I guess that kind of brings up the idea of picking that lock. If, let's say, we came across that lock, and we're going to pick Reed or Althea to pick it, obviously, and they would pull out their thieves' tools. Or their lock picking tools, and they would have disadvantage. But that doesn't stop you from just continuing to try. So that I think feel like that's where you need to build in somewhere where the DC gets higher with each attempt.
Oh, that's cool. So, I don't know if you've ever watched the Lockpicking Lawyer on YouTube.
Yes, yes.
So, did you see the one where he did a lock where it was they're made for the U.S. Postal Service where they're not unpickable whatever, but what they do have is a counter mechanism on the side so that every time it's opened, the count on this little window increases by one. And then once you
Mm.
get to the full count, which is like 9,999 or something like that, it ceases to function. It sticks in the open position, can't work anymore, whatever. So you have kind of a tamper evident, sort of thing, but
Right, right.
almost feels like a similar sort of scheme where yeah, the DC to pick that lock goes up every time. Um, which that's a cool idea. I
Yeah,
think that if I were ever using this, I would probably homebrew that in.
yeah. I feel like you'd need to. Otherwise, it's kind of underpowered as well because you have forever to try and pick it. You know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I feel like something like that paired with that makes that item usable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, thank you, Siddle, and your magical compendium of artifacts. Yeah, compendium of magical artifacts. English hard. And with that, let's jump into Stats Check. All right. I'd just like to give it a couple seconds to let that run through. You really get to hear the auto tune. I love it. Actually, I'd probably be super embarrassed by it if I cared, you know.
And that's the big part of it is you just fucking roll with it, man.
That's what you got to do, right? That's why I can't wait for Siddle to get his memory back and have an accent. It's going to be amazing. I feel it. All right, jumping into previous episode, as I mentioned, the hunter becomes the hunted. We'll jump into that funnel chart as I like to do, and I just want to say, Rusty and I talked about it. Amrook's coming back with that damage, but I know what's going to happen. Amrook's going to build up, build up, build up, overtake, and then a fireball's coming out. You know. uh, it's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be a constant struggle. Like it's not Amrook's idea to be like, I have to do the most damage. It's me like seeing that chart and not being able to help it. Uh,
No, I'm right there with you. For me, it's I don't think my character would give a shit. It's just do what I got to do. But for me, it's just a fun little competitive thing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. A little friendly competition. I like it.
Hmm.
Speaking of friendly competition, I read it. I wish you were here. We're gonna have to celebrate you joining the 1,000 damage club without you. I think that we have a third member doing 1,000 damage, and I just mentioned before, like he just does so much damage. I feel like rogues in general with sneak attack and stuff, like plus if you take certain feats that allow you a second attack or you have items that give you a second attack, like craziness, like the amounts of damage that can be done. And because you think about that in comparison to a fighter or a barbarian, stuff like that, even Griswold, do you think about it in comparison? Like Reed attacks less than Griswold and has more damage because of the kit. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah. Um, we'll jump back to the previous encounter. I think I'm gonna see if I can get Eric to put a total kill count in here. That way, obviously we can add it up. One, 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 two. Oh, we killed
Yeah,
six people.
yeah,
But I think it would be a cool thing there, and then that would carry over because of the way Power BI, not a sponsor yet, does it row level indexing. It would carry over here to give us our total kills for the whole encounter without having to add all those up. So I think that would be pretty cool addition. As I was looking through this, let's look at those damage charts for being attacked. I, I'm a little scared as I look at this chart. I feel like Garrett's pulling his punches. He's putting the rope a dope on us, right? Like he's not doing much damage. He's letting us wear ourselves out, and then he's gonna come with that haymaker. That's what I feel. I don't know.
oh yeah. As soon as we're in Nazana's lair and we're good and exhausted from all these preliminary fights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm right there with you. It's a little scary. Um,
let me wind back to that power. Yeah. Someone calls Satya Nadella. Like I went to the same college as him. Like we're practically bros, right? We really need that sponsorship. I think.
you know what? Shout out anybody who knows any Microsoft MVPs, Power BI MVPs. Throw us a bone. That's all I'm saying. Uh, I did want to highlight this since we were just talking about if we go ahead and highlight Siddle's fire damage, over 1,000 of your damage, 1,069 of your damage has been fire damage. So I look for that meta magic to come into play, especially if we stay up north. If we go back down south, if we go east, it may not. Who knows? But if we go against some fire giants, I don't know. I don't know. I guess you could technically keep it fire when needed and then switch it out. So it just gives you a little bit more versatility, right?
Yep, and that's exactly it. Is I only have a couple of sorcery points, so I can only really do this like once or twice per long rest. So, um, you know, definitely something to use sparingly. But yeah, I pretty much had fire giants in mind when I took that one.
Yeah, for sure. That would make sense. But the world's kind of opened up to us. I feel over these past 4 or 5 sessions with the different giants, and hearing more lore about the stone or the storm giants and the frost giants, and actually meeting a couple. You know, in my mind, the fire giants were like, oh crap, and now like we're discovering all these different things, and
Hmm.
I don't know what's going to be worse. So we got to play some strategy. We got to figure out the path, I guess. If we go ahead and jump into the damage overview, just want to show since you haven't been using Fireball for the past couple sessions, I've seen some other damage. Shatter jumped up quite a bit. It's now at 8%. I think it was at like 3% before the last 3 sessions. Firebolt has jumped up because you've been throwing out those cantrips a lot more, trying to conserve spell slots. So Fireball's drop in its percentage, and obviously not dropping in damage, but just dropping in that percentage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I wanted to grab this funnel chart, just show you also. So that Minotaur actually had over 100 points of HP. Pretty impressive, all things considered. That myself, the party was so split that it was myself, Adren, and I think Reed got one shot in on it.
Mm-hmm.
That it had over 100 damage and we took it down. Now, granted, it is a CR3, but only 3 people were working on it, right?
Yeah.
That was, it had more HP than all of the skeletons combined.
Oh damn.
Yeah,
I don't know that I realized that.
yeah. I just fun little notes there. Also, this past session, since we're talking about the past episode, so I won't say session, but Shatter did 77% of your damage.
Not bad.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool for a total of 34 points of damage.
Oh,
Uh,
because one of them was against that.
the rug and stuff.
Yeah, and the metallic, the automaton armor, whatever, where it had disadvantage against its on its save.
Right, right, exactly. And I wanted to highlight Reed on this one. So what I was talking about earlier is his average damage. This is average damage per session or per attack. Excuse me. I think it's per attack. Let's just double check those notes. That's 17. Yeah, average damage per hit. So if we come back, his average damage per hit is like 18.52. Uh, that is pretty crazy. I mean, yours is high, but yours is AoE. So think about it that way, that Reed's attacking one attack on a single target and almost has the same amount as your AoE in damage per attack.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Um, and you do get sneak attack once per, not per round, but per turn. So in theory, you could have sneak attack on your um, on I forget how it is. I think it's on your actual turn, and then if you get a reaction that round, you could use sneak attack again.
Mm, okay,
So he really could do some damage there in a round.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and then his overall damage, he's catching up, but because of that average damage, he's just rising ahead of some of the others that maybe don't have that damage output. or
Hmm.
or are spending on support or healing, because I really feel there's a balance there between that healing and that support, those support spells to enable the ones who do damage, as well as the melee to enable the backline to do damage, and vice versa. So I mean,
Yep. Absolutely.
and then one more thing that I looked at, and then we'll go ahead and close it off. I've been picking on Evan's fighting style, and I just want to show you since that happened. So that the fight in which he had 0 attacks was the last time I mentioned it, and now all of a sudden, look at his number of attacks going up, and right along with it, so is his damage. It's all about positioning and number of attacks, and all of a sudden now he's doing it. I look for his damage to come up too. Uh, kind of looking at myself here. Althea, we just got to get her up. Adrian, his is a little different because he plays utility. I'd like to see yours actually. Let's scroll down a little bit. So yours is kind
Akron
of
very
weird
much plays whatever is needed at that moment in time.
for sure, and that's why I say he's utility, because if he
Hmm.
needs to come up and give a little pop, he can. But if he needs to like sit back and do some healing or sit back and pull attention away, he can also do that.
Yeah.
And Reed can do a little bit of it now too, because he has the mobile feat, so he can bob and weave a little bit more. And you've noticed he's used the rapier a little bit more as well.
Yeah. He used to pretty much exclusively just sit back and take pot shots, but
Yeah. So, but I wanted to look at yours because your attacks, so your AOE attacks, each of those monsters that have to make that saving throw, it counts as an attack. So your attacks like this one right here, for instance, 23 attacks in
Uh,
Grudhog. That's because of 2, 3 fireballs, right?
mhm.
So it I think I almost want to see like an overlapping chart between you and someone else's uh, damage. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to
Yeah.
gauge. If I just look at you and Griswold, it's it's hard to be like, well, what the heck is going on here? You know what I mean? But
Yeah, mine's a
uh,
little bit artificially inflated because I do make use of AoE so much.
but I notice a pattern here that AOE, skip, AOE, skip, and then AOE, smaller, but I can tell it was the Oni. I think you used 2 fireballs in that fight, and then you
Mhm.
skip for a little bit, and now all of a sudden AOE, skip, AOE. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you like every other session you're AOEing.
I do try to save the spell slots for when, all right, I've got as many people clumped up in one spot as I'm probably going to this fight.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, using the situation and the spell or attack or strategy that makes the most sense in that situation. And I
Yeah,
think that's the best way to fight, my opinion. Just use the situation.
absolutely.
So, Bless versus Bane doesn't matter what we prefer, matters what's best in the situation.
Hmm.
So, I know I said one more thing, but I would feel remiss if I didn't point out Adrin's healing this past session. One healing spirit. So, because of a healing spirit, we don't even need to take a long rest. We're just pushing through. When does it come into play that we are exhausted? Do you know?
I so we've never really done anything with like actual by the book exhaustion in this campaign, have we?
We haven't had to because up until
Yeah.
recently, we were like, all right, let's take a long rest. All right, let's take a long rest. And now, that we're on a dungeon crawl and we're like, there is a time, that we're having to push. We're just going short rest for the past couple sessions.
Yeah.
So I want to say it's like 48 hours. Like if you haven't slept in 48 hours, that you have a point of exhaustion, but it might be 24 hours and you have a point of exhaustion. So, as day breaks, basically, if we haven't taken a long rest, we might have a point of exhaustion. And
Yeah,
then,
which is
if we keep going, we get another point of exhaustion. I think at 2 points of exhaustion, you're at like disadvantage and stuff.
yeah, even at one point of exhaustion, it's a pretty severe um pretty severe detriment when you're getting in there. I'm looking it up right now too. I was just dealing with this in one of my other campaigns, but uh, bu- 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 so yeah, no, for 1 point of exhaustion, disadvantage on ability checks, 2 points speed halved, 3 points disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws, 4 points hit point maximum halved, 5 points speed reduced to zero, 6 points death. So, and then they all compound on, so if you've got 2 points, you have the disadvantage on ability checks and your speed is halved.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So
you
I
know,
mean, we might be able to keep our HP up, but eventually we're gonna need to rest. You know what I mean?
yeah, and then my bigger worry is just spell slots. You know,
Yeah.
I can do some damage if I um just on cantrips, but if we have a bunch of people all in one place, I'm much more efficient at mopping the floor, so to speak. So
Yeah. So that meta magic, if you decide to cast ice or instead of fire, frost damage, whatever it's called, does that have any bonus effects of like slow or half movement or anything like that on them?
that is a great question.
Or maybe it coats the floor in ice. Like I know there are a couple spells that coat the floor in ice, and then the person has to make like a dex saving throw to see if they can walk across it and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
So if you cast an ice fireball, what happens? And does that turn around and screw the rest of the party that you've just spell sculpted around, but they can't go out of that spot because they're gonna slip and fall?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's no real spell called, ice ball. You have like cone of ice, things like that.
Hmm.
That's something I should probably have a chat with our DM about.
I just throwing it out there. I like it.
Because a standard fireball, light shit on fire, blah blah blah, whatever. I
Right.
mean, I'm not going to throw a snowball at a table and it's going to catch fire, right? It's going to be icy.
Yeah, for sure. It's got to leave some sort of. I feel like if it's in the spell to leave residual effect, then no matter the type of magic, there should be a residual effect. If it's lightning, I can still see the fire, right?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. But
Yeah, yeah. But all right, I think that's a great place to end it. Leave it on a question and something to think about for next session in which you decide to cast Ice Fireball. That's what I'm calling it.
perfect, sounds good to me.
All right, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you Sunday, I think.
Absolutely.